Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Dashen, Usman. Here are the headlines making rounds beyond the continent. We begin in the United States of America, where Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump says abortion rights should be left up to U.S. states to decide. This comes after months of mixed signals on one of the November election's most contentious flashpoints. Now, Trump's November opponent, U.S. President Joe Biden, is a devout Catholic, but has stood firm in his support for abortion access, stating repeatedly that if Congress tries to enact a national abortion ban, he will veto it. In his statement, Trump did not mention a national abortion ban, potentially leaving himself some room as Republicans struggle to stake out a definitive line on the issue. For decades, conservatives have championed the issue, but it is unpopular with the wider American public.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith. Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country and vote. Like Ronald Reagan, I am strongly in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
Now, to further discuss this, I'm joined by Ejike Okpa. He is a global affairs analyst. Good evening, Ejike. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Ejike, how do you assess the potential global implications of Donald Trump advocating for abortion rights to be determined by individual U.S. states?
Well, abortion, for me personally, I've always believed is something that shouldn't have a federal government, legislation affecting it. As Americans, we are a union of states, and each state is very different. Each state has got its own laws. So when the federal government, through the Supreme Court and Health and Human Services, or the president, depending on who is in the White House, comes in and tries to say this is supposed to be a national thing, I just don't think it. I just don't think that that's the way to go. States have laws. That doesn't mean you cannot have abortion. There's a time. In some states, it's 9 weeks. In some states, it's up to 16 weeks. If there are exceptions, like former president said, those things are listened to and considered. So that is my take. This is not going to affect human or women rights all over the world, because America is just unique by its own self. Nobody should start looking at it like, okay, this is what is going to affect women globally.
Okay.
Nations should look at their own laws and see what works for them, and then legislate it accordingly.
All right, but then considering the role of the United States as a global leader, how might Trump's stance on abortion rights impact international perceptions, especially of American values and policies?
Well, it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not going to have any effect, because if you go to the Muslim nations, they have their own ways, the Taliban, whatever America says, they still treat their women in a certain way. You go to modern Nigeria, for instance, the women oftentimes are not allowed to do certain things. And then, you go to India, you go to China. So America is America, and anybody who wants to copy America, copy what is going to work for you, and be able to communicate that to your own people, and don't say, oh, the way they do it in America. Because in America, there are 50 states, and we all act like nations. Our laws are our laws. That's why we have bicameral houses. We have House of Representatives and Senate in each state, and they too deliberate. It is when we have some disagreement as to what happens, then we can go to the Supreme Court and start to see if we can get a ruling. And even at that, we have now ruled against the Roe versus Wade, and then put it back to the state. And I think that's where it belongs.
All right, now talking about what works for one might not work for the other. Now, with Joe Biden's firm support for abortion access contrasting Trump's position, how can this divergence affect U.S. foreign relations and diplomacy on issues related to women's rights and also healthcare.
Well, I mean, you would think Joe Biden, who has claimed he's a Catholic, that he will be on the side of, anti-abortion, but then it's all politics, because the Democrats are, championing. The Democrats are feeling that women should have the right to do whatever they want to do. It's all fine and good with me. I'm just saying, at what point does the state get involved with our, taxpayers' money, because of an individual's, conduct? If it's in the case of, incest or rape, I think and I can understand that. And usually abortions are granted on the basis of that, but simply on the fact that I don't want this kid, I'm going to abort it. Fine, if that's your decision and it suits your personal desires, let it be, but the taxpayer should not be involved in funding those kind of activities.
All right, now, Ejike, the whole national abortion ban and Trump's decision, allows or gives room for interpretation, yes? But how do you think that this ambiguity will influence global discourse on reproductive rights and women's health, especially in regions, where these issues are highly contested?
Well, again, the ambiguity is for Americans. Anybody who's coming in and wanting to say, oh, this is how they do it in America is having a misplaced interest and a misplaced priority. Again, laws should be localized. Law should be about the people where they are and how their culture and traditions have guided them, thus far. But to just say copy and paste, you can copy and paste, but is it relevant? Where is the will to paste? And sometimes if you paste wrongly, and you're going to have more confusion in your own country. So the women issues globally, I can understand, we need to have women to have access. But women have always had access. We just have to be more open about it. And in some culture, again, if you look at the various tribes in Nigeria, how they treat their own women, and then you take it globally across continent and see women in some places are not even allowed to be in the same living room, with, their male counterparts. When my brother-in-law was governor of Gombe State back in the 90s, military governor, he couldn't even have meetings with female commissioners. He has to, oppose it. And then they gradually allowed it. And this is how many years ago? It wasn't even like a century ago. So again, we have to embrace our women. They are human beings. Because they are a different gender doesn't mean they are inferior or less than. A lot of them have great brains. A lot of them have capacity to do more and better than men. So we shouldn't suppress them just on the fact that it's a masculine society and a woman shouldn't do certain things.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst, for joining me and speaking to us on this. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Still in North America, Mexico says it will file a complaint against Ecuador at the International Court of Justice following the raid on its embassy in Quito, which has prompted searing international condemnation. Mexico's Foreign Minister, Alicia Barcina, made this known during President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's regular morning news conference. Mexican diplomatic personnel left Ecuador on April 7th as the two countries severed ties after Quito's security forces stormed the embassy late April 5th to arrest a former vice president sheltering inside.
México está muy agradecido del comportamiento de la comunidad internacional, de las naciones, porque han sido muy generosos, muy fraternos, muy solidarios.
Concretas, vamos a presentar la demanda ante la Corte Internacional de Justicia, que ya se está preparando ahora. Vamos a solicitar el respaldo de las cancillerías y de los países de CELAC, que son 33, bueno, excepto Ecuador, por supuesto, y vamos a enviar una carta al secretario general de las Naciones Unidas para que se presente ante toda la membresía de las Naciones Unidas, el Consejo de Derechos Humanos y la Asamblea General.
Mexican presidential candidates have clashed on issues including corruption, gender violence, and healthcare during the first presidential debate. Claudia Sheinbaum, former Mexico City mayor and a close ally of outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, is the current front-runner with 59% of voter support. According to an average of polls compiled by the firm Oracleism, Xochitl Galvez in second place with 35% and Jorge Menes in third with 6%.
El pueblo de México me conoce, sabe que lo que nos distingue es el amor al pueblo de México y que una serie de adjetivos que vienen de una persona que se caracteriza por la mentira y por la corrupción, pues la verdad es que no hay que tomarlos en cuenta. Nosotros vamos a seguir con la campaña, salimos bien del debate y vamos a seguir adelante.
¡Bravo! Buenas noches. Estoy muy feliz porque hoy México pudo conocer por qué necesitábamos estar en la boleta, por qué no podíamos formar parte de ninguna de las coaliciones de la vieja política que se exhibieron como lo que son, partidos corruptos, anacrónicos, que no dan respuestas a los problemas que tiene el país, que no le dan respuestas a las preocupaciones de las mexicanas y de los mexicanos y que no ofrecen un futuro distinto.
La verdad es que el formato no se prestaba para poner en la mesa todas las ideas que yo traía en materia de salud y de educación. 5 minutos para colocar todas las ideas es nada, y yo creo que si queremos un debate más fluido, pues tendría que ser un tete-a-tete, que se ponga el tema y que los tres empecemos a debatir, porque yo decía, o contesto la pregunta o pongo mi idea. Y decir...
Beyond the Continent returns after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's move to Europe, where 2 brothers and 2 other young people have been charged with murder over the killing of a 15-year-old boy that has heightened concern about violence in French schools. 2 of the accused, a 20-year-old and a minor, were jailed while the other 2 minors were held in pre-trial remand for beating 15-year-old Shamsuddin as he left school. Jean-Marie Villain, mayor of Viry-Châtillon, also condemned the killing.
La seule chose, c'est qu'il n'y a aucun honneur dans ce qui s'est passé. On n'a aucun honneur quand on vient à 4 pour taper sur quelqu'un, quel qu'il soit, quelle que soit la raison. Il y a de la lâcheté, il y a de la trouillardise, il y a tout ce qu'on veut, mais en tout cas, certainement pas de l'honneur. L'honneur, c'est quand on respecte les gens, et là, il n'y a aucun respect, donc pas d'honneur. Mais c'est des choses qui existent déjà, même dans le primaire. Et ce qu'il faut, c'est surtout mettre en application tout l'arsenal possible et imaginable pour que, à la première bêtise, un enfant, peut-être même un très jeune enfant, on puisse lui expliquer que ce qu'il a fait, c'est pas bien, et donc il va falloir soit qu'il se reprenne, soit qu'il en subisse les conséquences. Moi, je le fais.
French prosecutor Eric Vallant has announced that the man suspected of being the scooter rapist has admitted to 1 count of rape, which was linked to his DNA. The 22-year-old man and former EScooter salesman is accused of multiple sexual attacks on women he followed on an e-scooter in the French city of Grenoble. He was charged on Sunday with 2 counts of rape, 1 attempted rape, 1 attempted sexual assault, 2 counts of aggravated violence, and 1 count of aggravated extortion.
En examen suspect, en cours 15 ans de réclusion criminelle, mais ces 15 ans pourraient passer à 20 ans de réclusion criminelle si, à la fin de l'instruction, le caractère sériel des viols peut être établi, puisque c'est une circonstance aggravante que d'avoir commis une série de viols. Donc toutes ces plaintes, enfin pour l'instant je vous dis il n'y en a qu'une seule, mais je pense qu'il y en a au moins 2 ou 3 qui sont susceptibles d'arriver. Ces plaintes donc seront examinées, donc évidemment avec attention, avec diligence, et notre premier travail, enfin le premier travail des policiers, sera de voir si oui ou non on peut les rattacher, comme le disent les victimes, à cette affaire du violeur à la trottinette.
3e axe d'enquête, à savoir une photo qu'on a pu extraire de l'ensemble des systèmes de vidéoprotection de l'agglomération grenobloise. Vidéo qui nous a permis de travailler sur un type de trottinette spécifique, type qui nous a permis du coup, encore une fois, de resserrer l'étau sur un individu, un suspect probable.
Let's now bring you updates on the Israel-Hamas war, where thousands gathered in front of Israel's parliament in Jerusalem to demand the return of the hostages abducted by Hamas militants in Gaza exactly 6 months ago. It's an open wound and it won't close, says a relative of a hostage. About 250 Israelis and foreigners were taken hostage by militants on October 7th. A teenager was freed in a deal with Hamas at the end of November. The army says 129 are still being held in Gaza, including 34 who are presumed dead.
אנחנו צריכים שהחטופים יחזרו הביתה כדי להחלים. אני אומרת את זה כקרובת משפחה ואני אומרת את זה כאשת בריאות נפש. אנחנו לא יכולים להחלים מהטראומה עד שהיא לא תיגמר. כל עוד יש חטופים בעזה, הטראומה נמשכת. הנפש לא יכולה לעכל את זה. זה פצע פתוח, הוא לא נסגר.
בדמיונות השחורים ביותר, לא חשבתי שזה יגיע לחצי שנה. חשבתי שזה יגיע לחודש. חצי שנה זה הרבה יותר מדי. עכשיו שחרר אותה מהר.
טעמנו הדבר הראשון שצריך לקרות ובכל מחיר הוא ההחזרה של החטופים. המצב שבו הם יושבים שם והממשלה מטרפדת את ההחזרה שלהם הוא בלתי נסבל ולא מתקבל על הדעת. נוגד את כל הערכים האנושיים, בוודאי את ערכי היהדות והציונות. אנחנו לא יכולים להסכים לזה. ואחרי שהם ישובו אז בהחלט יש מקום לחפש פתרון ארוך טווח שיאפשר קיום בשלום בארץ הזאת.
Nicaragua has told the International Court of Justice in The Hague that it was pathetic for Germany to give weapons to the Israeli government while simultaneously providing aid in Gaza. The Central American nation is demanding judges impose emergency measures to stop Berlin from providing Israel with weapons and other assistance. Germany's representative, speaking outside the court, said her country rejected the charges, calling Nicaragua's case grossly biased. Now, Germany is to respond on Tuesday.
It's indeed a pathetic excuse to the Palestinian children, women and men in Gaza to provide humanitarian aid, including through airdrops, on the one hand, and to furnish the weapons and military equipment that are used to kill and annihilate them, and to kill also humanitarian aid workers, as most recently evidenced by the missile attack against vehicles and workers of World Central Kitchen. On the other hand,
Germany does not and never did violate the Genocide Convention nor international humanitarian law, either directly nor indirectly. Nicaragua's presentation was grossly biased, and we will be telling you tomorrow how we fully live up to our responsibilities. Thank you very much.
The Israeli government has reiterated its desire to destroy Hamas. Government spokesman Avi Hyman made this known on Monday during a news briefing. Hyman also confirmed that the army will move into Rafah, Hamas's last stronghold. On Monday, Israel and Hamas dampened hopes of a speedy breakthrough in Cairo talks towards a Gaza truce and hostage release deal after Egyptian state-linked media had reported significant progress.
I will remind the world that this war could end right now, without negotiations, without talks, in Cairo or anywhere else. This war could end right now with Hamas putting their hands in the air, waving a white flag, and committing and releasing the 133 hostages. They need to be home with their families right now. Is that Hamas, once again, are holding up negotiations. It is not us. We're hopeful that we can get to a deal to release those hostages that should be home with their families, should have been home with their families long ago. But that doesn't in any way affect the other war aim, which is to destroy Hamas. We will continue with our mission to destroy Hamas. The Prime Minister was very clear about that in his statements yesterday about Rafah. We will continue on to Rafah. We will destroy Hamas.
Turkey says Israel has blocked its attempts to airdrop aid into Gaza and vows to take a series of new measures against Israel. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan says Turkey learned on Monday that the request, which was welcomed by the Jordanian authorities, was rejected by Israel.
Gazze'lilere havadan yardım ulaştırmak. Biz de hava kuvvetlerimize ait kargo uçaklarıyla bu insani yardım operasyonuna dahil olma talebimizi iletmiştik. Ürdün makamlarınca olumlu karşılanan bu talebimizin İsrail tarafından reddedildiğini bugün öğrendik. İsrail'in açlıkla boğuşan Gazze'lilere havadan yardım ulaştırma girişimimizi engellemesinin hiçbir bahanesi olamaz. Bu durum karşısında biz de İsrail'e yönelik bir dizi yeni tedbir almayı kararlaştırdık.
The leader of South Korea's ruling power, that's People Power Party, Han Dong-hoon, has asked on voters to support his party at the ballot during a rally on Monday for candidate Ahn Cheol-soo. Han said voting for his party would be akin to protecting the country, comparing voters to historical hero Admiral Yi Sung-shin, who fought against the Japanese during the 16th century Imjin War.
지금 우리가 나서지 않아서 200석 당하고 개헌 당하면 그 다음에 우리가 할 수 있는 게 뭐가 있을 것 같습니까? 저분들 국회에서 사면할 수 있게 개헌할 겁니다. 뭔들 하는 사람 아닙니까? 그래서 자기들 사면해 버릴 거예요. 안 그럴 것 같습니까? 저 사람들이 하는 행동을 보세요. 나와 주십시오. 그 12시간이 이순신 장군께서 이 나라를 지키셨던 것처럼 우리 대한민국을 지키게 할 거라고 저는 확신합니다. 전 여러분을 믿습니다. 여러분 모두 우리를 믿겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.